Imagine this, the sky turns black in the middle of the day. Rain doesn't fall, it attacks. Within hours, the river you've known your entire life, the one that gave you water, fish and life, turns into a monster. It swallows the land. It swallows the trees. It swallows everything your ancestors built. You are standing on the last dry patch of earth for miles. Your children are hungry. Your fire is dead. Your food stores are underwater. You have two choices: find food in the next few hours, or die waiting for the water to go down. This wasn't a one-time disaster. For early humans living near rivers like the Nile, the Tigris, the Euphrates, and the Yellow River, this was every single flood season. So how did they survive? How did people with no boats, no supermarkets, no rescue teams, find food every single day while the world around them was underwater? The answer is more brilliant, and more brutal, than you'd expect. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll never look at a flood the same way again. Part 1. The flood wasn't always the enemy. Here's the twist nobody tells you. Ancient humans didn't just survive floods. Many of them waited for them, because floods, as terrifying as they were, left something behind after the water receded. Soil so rich, so fertile, that entire civilizations were built around this cycle. Along the Nile River in Egypt, floods came like clockwork almost every year. And ancient Egyptians didn't run from this flood season. They had a name for it: Akhet, the season of inundation. But here's the catch. Knowing the flood would come didn't mean the danger was gone. Before the water settled, before the fields turned fertile again, there was a brutal window of time where people had almost nothing to eat. This is where the real survival story begins. Part 2. The first rule: go up, not away. When the water rose, ancient humans didn't panic and run randomly. They followed something almost instinctive, a rule passed down for generations: go to higher ground, but stay close to the water's edge. Why? Because that edge, where dry land meets flood, became the richest hunting zone on Earth for a few critical days. Fish got trapped in shallow pools as the water spread and then slowly pulled back. Frogs, turtles, and shellfish were pushed into unfamiliar shallow areas, easy to catch by hand. Small animals like rodents and snakes were flushed out of their burrows, fleeing the rising water directly into the paths of waiting humans. In many early river-based societies, this period was actually seen as a temporary feast, not a famine. If you knew where to look, but it wasn't luck, it was memory. Elders remembered flood patterns from years before and passed down survival maps. Not written, but spoken, sung, or marked using natural landmarks. Part 3. The silent weapon. Woven traps. Here's something most people don't know. Long before metal hooks or fishing rods, ancient humans engineered one of the smartest tools in survival history: woven fish traps, made from reeds, vines, and flexible branches. These traps were placed in narrow flood channels, spots where the retreating water was forced through tight gaps. Fish swimming with the current would enter the trap chasing food, or escaping the flow, and simply couldn't swim back out. This wasn't guesswork. It was environmental engineering, thousands of years before that term existed. Archaeological evidence from ancient river settlements in Mesopotamia and East Asia shows woven trap remnants and post holes in riverbanks. Proof that ancient communities weren't just reacting to floods. They were designing systems to defeat them. Part 4. The hidden pantry. What grew back first? Now, here's where it gets even more fascinating. While animals fled the flood, something else was quietly waking up beneath the mud. Wild tubers, root vegetables, wetland plants like cattails and water lilies. These didn't just survive flooding, many of them thrived in it. Ancient humans learned to identify which plants pushed through the mud first after a flood. Often edible roots packed with starch and energy, perfect for feeding a hungry family fast. This knowledge wasn't accidental. It was tested, generation after generation, through trial, error, and yes, sometimes tragic mistakes. But over centuries, this became one of the most reliable emergency food systems in human history. While the men often focused on trapping and fishing, historians believe foraging groups, frequently led by women and elders, were responsible for locating this fast-growing flood vegetation, arguably the most consistent food source of all. Part 5. The danger no one talks about. But survival during a flood wasn't just about finding food. It was about finding it before something else did. Flooded zones didn't just attract humans. They attracted predators. Crocodiles pulled from their usual territory, snakes displaced from underground nests, and larger animals pushed toward the same shrinking dry land that humans were standing on. Every trip to gather food during a flood was a calculated risk. Every trap check by the water's edge could mean coming face to face with something far more dangerous than hunger. This is why ancient communities almost never gathered food alone during flood season. Groups moved together. Some watching the water, some watching the land, some gathering. It wasn't just teamwork. It was the only way anyone came back alive. Part 6. The legacy. How this shaped civilization. Here's the part that changes everything. This yearly cycle of flood, danger, and recovery didn't just help ancient humans survive. It's one of the reasons civilization itself began where it did. The same flood systems that threatened lives also built the most fertile farmland on Earth. Communities that mastered flood survival began settling permanently near these rivers instead of migrating away from danger. Over time, this evolved into organized irrigation, early agriculture, and eventually, some of the first cities in human history, all born from a simple, brutal truth. Those who learned to survive the flood learned to build empires beside it. So the next time you see a flood on the news, or picture ancient rivers overflowing their banks, remember this. For thousands of years, human survival didn't depend on avoiding disaster. It depended on understanding it. Reading the water, reading the land, and finding food in the very chaos that could have killed them. They didn't have boats, they didn't have warnings. They didn't have safety nets. They had knowledge, teamwork, and the will to survive one more day. And in the end, that was enough to build the world we live in today. If this story fascinated you, make sure to subscribe, because next time, we're uncovering an even darker survival secret from ancient history, one that most people have never heard of.